Every year, millions of players return to games that they've already finished. Games they know by heart. Games whose secrets they've uncovered, whose maps they've memorized, whose soundtracks feel stitched into their memories. It's a ritual so common that we rarely stop to question it. Why do we keep replaying the classics? Why do certain games call us back year after year, even as newer, flashier titles push the medium forward? There's something special about replaying Super Mario World, A Link to the Past, the golden era of SNES RPGs, or the early days of Pokemon. These aren't just games, they're landmarks in our personal histories. Returning to them feels less like booting up software, and more like opening a doorway back into a familiar room we used to live in. The pixels haven't changed, but we have, and that tension between who we were when we first played and who we've become is part of what makes the return so powerful. Replay isn't just nostalgia, it's comfort, routine, memory, identity, and emotional grounding woven together. It's the moment where the past and present touch. Classic games don't simply persist because they're timeless, they persist because they reflect something timeless in us. Replaying a classic game is like revisiting a childhood home. Even if the layout has faded in your memory, the moment you step inside, everything feels exactly where it should be. The corners feel familiar. The air feels the same. The lighting, the sounds, the patterns, they settle into you before you even notice. There's a sensation of booting up a game like Super Mario World. Title screen pops up, Yoshi gallops across the grass, and suddenly your brain is flooded with 1,000 subtle cues it hasn't consciously thought about in years. You know the timing of the cape spin before you feel the button presses. You know the secret exits before you remember knowing them. You're not just playing with muscle memory, you're playing with emotional memory. The game isn't challenging you, it's welcoming you back. Classic games offer a kind of predictability that's rare in our lives. They're worlds that never betray us, never shift under our feet, never demand anything new. In A Link to the Past, you know exactly where the heart pieces are hiding, you know which dungeons will test you and which ones will comfort you. There's no uncertainty, no anxiety, no noise. Just a return to a place that has remained intact despite all the changes around you. And in a world full of unpredictability, that consistency becomes a balm. Replay becomes ritual, a way to reset, to breathe, to reorient. Games like these serve as emotional touchstones, grounding us when life feels overwhelming. You don't play them to be surprised, you play them to remember what certainty feels like. Classic games endure not because they're old, but because they are stable. In their familiarity, they feel safe. In their simplicity, they feel honest. And in their repetition, they create comfort the same way a favorite book or movie does, by reminding us that we can still return to something unchanged when our own lives are anything but. There is a difference between returning to a classic game once every few years and doing it intentionally, regularly, almost ceremonially. Many players don't just replay Pokemon Red or Pokemon Crystal, they replay them at the same time of year, during certain seasons, or whenever life reaches a transition point. Replay becomes a ritual, and rituals give structure to our emotional lives. SNES JRPGs are especially powerful in this way. Their slow pacing, warm palettes, and patient storytelling create a sense of rhythm. You don't rush through Secret of Mana or Chrono Trigger, you settle into them. You move through their worlds like you're following a familiar road at sunset, knowing exactly what's at each bend. These games were never about mechanical mastery, they were about emotional immersion. Replaying them becomes an annual retreat into a slower, softer form of play. And then we have Pokemon, usually Gen 1 through 3, that takes us even further, at least for me. Those games captured a moment in time, not just for the medium, but for millions of childhoods. Replaying them often feels like recreating a ritual we didn't even realize we were forming as kids. Choosing a starter, catching a team we know by heart, building a journey that we could complete with our eyes closed. Even the imperfections, the limited move pools, the simple storylines, the grainy sprites, they all feel comforting. They remind us of a period when games felt open, mysterious, and full of imagination. Ritual creates meaning. When you revisit a game out of tradition rather than impulse, you're not just replaying, you're reaffirming something about yourself. You're marking the passing of time by touching the same object, same world, same soundscape. These games haven't changed, but each replay becomes a snapshot of who you are now. Classic games become personal holidays, emotional checkpoints, anchor points we return to not because we need nostalgia, but because we need stability. They become reminders that we've grown, survived, lived, but still carry the same sources of joy we always have. Classic games aren't just artifacts of the past. They're emotional timestamps, each one tied to a different version of ourselves. When we revisit them, we're reconnecting with those versions, peeling back layers of life we've accumulated since the first time we picked up the controller. Playthrough becomes memory work, a ritual of remembering. And the games we return to most often are the ones whose history are intertwined with our own. Take Earthbound. Replaying it now isn't just about quirky humor or inventive combat. It's about revisiting a worldview that felt impossibly strange and impossibly sincere when I was younger. Earthbound captures the feeling of childhood misunderstanding, the surrealism of growing up, and the quiet melancholy of leaving home for the first time. Returning to it as an adult, it felt like walking through a dream that I had forgotten I had. You notice new themes that went over your head years ago. Its tenderness, loneliness, its earnest belief that ordinary people can matter. That game hasn't changed, but I have, and that shifting relationship becomes part of the emotional experience. Or consider Final Fantasy IX, a game overflowing with warmth and whimsy, but also with themes of identity, purpose, and mortality that rarely fully register until much later in life. When I first played it, the adventure was the focus, the airships, the kingdoms, the charm, but as I replay it decades later, highlights different things. The existential longing behind Vivi, the emotional vulnerability of Garnet, the fleeting nature of the moments these characters share. A story once consumed for entertainment becomes a story I revisit for reflection. The nostalgia bends with new understanding, creating a layered richness only time can unravel. And even something as seemingly straightforward as Donkey Kong Country can carry this weight. Speedrunning through its levels as a kid felt fun and exhilarating. Replaying them now often feels soothing, a rhythmic, almost meditative return to simpler physicality in games. The music, the pacing, the momentum of each level tap into muscle memory that I don't remember even having. It becomes a sensory bridge between past and present, a reminder of when joy came easily and immediately. Now, these games don't endure just because they were mechanically strong or visually memorable, but because they occupy emotional real estate. They have become part of a personal mythology. Each playthrough acts as a reunion. We revisit a place that shaped us, but we're also discovering how we've changed since the last time we were there. Classic games become mirrors that, alongside us, even though they're pixels, stay frozen in time. Replaying a classic isn't about reliving the past. It's about understanding the present through the shape of the past. It's about recognizing the continuity between who we were and who we are now, anchored by a world that has remained familiar even as everything else has shifted. That's why these replays matter. They're not escapes from life, but reflections of it. We replay classic games every year not because we're stuck in the past, but because the past still lives inside these worlds. In their familiar rhythms, we find comfort. In their repetition, we find ritual. In their persistence, we find pieces of ourselves we don't want to lose. Classic games are more than nostalgia. They're anchors, emotional constants, time machines that run on memory and muscle and music. They remind us that joy doesn't have to be new to be meaningful. Sometimes, joy grows deeper each time we return to the same place. We don't replay to escape, we replay to reconnect, to remember, to feel steady, to carry a small piece of our past into the present and hold it gently. And in that sense, classic games don't age. They endure, and we endure with them. Hey, thank you as always for taking time out of your day to watch this video. I truly appreciate you. If you're new here, maybe think about going down, clicking that subscribe button, click the like button, and ring that notification bell if you want more videos like this in the future. Thank you as always for watching. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.